Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Driven Wyld. Today we are talking about getting started with a ghost kitchen. So the gig economy has a lot of different aspects to it, and some of those aspects are on the restaurant side of things. And while you can operate a ghost kitchen from an already established restaurant, Mico the Entrepreneur actually started DōBeverage from her garage, and we did an interview with this person on getting started with a ghost kitchen. So in this video, we are going through part of the interview that Mico did with us, how she got started with her ghost kitchen, and everything in between. But before we do that, let's go over a quick disclaimer. The content of this video does not contain, is never intended to be, legal, business, financial, tax, or health advice of any kind. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is advised that you conduct your own research and consult qualified professionals before applying anything you find online. I also want to be clear that everything that we're going to be going over, especially when dealing with food and health safety, is very market dependent. And what applies to me in my market and Mico in her market may not apply to you. So with that said, let's get started.
I started my ghost kitchen in Houston during the pandemic. So it was March 2020, and it was a detached garage. And I had it set up like to see the before and after. Drivers came up to pick up the deliveries. They were like, how did you get it to look like this? And it was very simple. So I put up wallpaper. I had like a TV on the wall. I had the refrigerator. I had a little sink, to wash my hands. The setup was really great. I think for some people who are doing ghost kitchens now, keep in mind different states, they have different laws and different rules. So I know with Houston, it's a little bit different, right? Everyone has the cottage law. So cottage law.
In case you guys don't know, cottage law or cottage food laws are regulations set by specific states that enable small-scale food makers to manufacture and sell certain types of food products right from their home.
I wasn't under the cottage law because Texas, it was a little bit different. It was a certain amount of money. If you made over that, you couldn't participate in the cottage law.
According to the state of Texas cottage food laws, you could sell up to $50,000 in gross sales annually in order to make and sell foods under cottage law.
But with Florida, now that I'm back here in Orlando, you can start a ghost kitchen. You don't have to be licensed. It's really interesting for Florida. And I'm surprised you don't even have to have an inspection. That's what's so funny about it.
According to Florida cottage food law, cottage food businesses can't have more than $250,000 in gross sales per year. And no, they don't require any sort of permit. However, there are other limitations to that, so make sure you do your research to know what you can and cannot do.
I'm shocked that is not a lot of ghost kitchens from home or apartment complexes or detached garages because, like I said, no inspections. You don't have to be licensed. All you have to do is make under $250,000. And you can go look it up too. Look up cottage law for Florida. Also, as long as I think in general, you have to have like packaged food inside of a package, but it has to be printed out like the ingredients and who it's from. I know it was big like that with Texas. Here in Florida, I'm not sure.
So both Florida and Texas have labeling requirements, and they're very similar in the following ways. In Texas, you must include allergens, business name, business address, and the product name. For Florida, you also need to have the name, the address, the idea that it's a cottage operation as well, that also must be noted. And of course, any sort of ingredients list, such as allergens, net weight, net volume, etc. However, there is one interestingly notable thing that I did want to address when comparing the two differences. For Texas cottage food law, there must be a note on the product that said it was made in an uninspected kitchen, whereas in Florida, it must be labeled as made in a cottage food operation that is not subject to Florida's food and safety regulations. Both of them are very specific and have different connotations, so keep that in mind in case other people have questions on what they're receiving as a product, because that can lead to a challenge down the road.
You have a lot of people who say, wow, I don't need a permit, no inspections, no license. I can start a cloud kitchen under the cottage law in Florida. And then, with other states, it's the cottage law. You have like low risk foods, like some baked food, candies, like they bake cakes, pies, cookies, jam, as long as you have a label on it and have the ingredients, because you can't just have like an item that you created and don't have the ingredients, because guess what? We have a lot of people who are gluten free. We have a lot of people who are allergic to peanuts. You have a lot of people with so many allergies that's allergic to everything, that you have to let people know what they're eating. Now, I saw the TikTok on various platforms. People were showing it. I don't know what state that was from, so I can't really speak too much on that because I haven't done the research on that state. However, in the inside, it could have been remodeled, right? But I think when you have a business, even when drivers came up to my detached garage with the door up, it was presentable. It looked like a business. I had drivers say, well, wow, my dad trying to start something. Can you tell me how you got started? I wanted to start a business and I called it DōBeverage. So donuts and beverages. It started out being healthy, convenient. I was selling gluten-free donuts. I was selling the KATZ brand. So I was selling their donuts, and I had alkaline water and almond milk, different varieties of almond milk. Once I got on the platform, because of course I can't sell out of my garage, who's going to buy it, right? So I couldn't really technically sell on site at my apartment complex. But if I was on a platform such as Doordash and UberEats, I was able to sell my product. I signed up with Doordash first, I think. They were waiving different fees for people because it was during the pandemic. They needed a photographer because I guess the pictures I did, some they accepted and some they didn't. So they said, okay, we're going to send you a photographer, and I didn't have to pay for it. So they sent me a photographer, and actually her name is Kirby. She came, she took pictures of the items, gave me a copy of the photos. I had to upload those photos to Doordash. And so they brought me on. I had my business license. They sent me a tablet. I mean, I could have did it on my own tablet, but I didn't have the internet, so I had to have their tablet. So that's what got me. I didn't have the hotspot because I was just getting started out. Because when you're getting started in any business, whether it's a startup, S Corp, C Corp, LLC, whatever, you have different expenses. When I started with DoorDash, everything was good until it was time for me to get paid. And I kind of like made different comments on other people's chats or channels, or even in my videos. DoorDash never paid me. So I said I was going to do another video on that, but they came up with every excuse, from the tablet with the Wi-Fi on it and all these fees that I had to pay.
Now, what a lot of people don't know is that the DoorDash tablet is not their tablet. It can be their tablet if they have one, but if you want one that also provides its own Wi-Fi and can receive orders just like that, DoorDash can provide you an Android Social Mobile Rhino T8 tablet to rent for $6 a week. And of course, there are other fees that are associated with that on the back end too. The point is that if you're just starting out and this is the way you want to go, that is something that needs to be accounted for. It doesn't seem like much until it starts eating into your profit margins. Can you just integrate it into your POS system? Absolutely. But for a startup that hasn't developed those systems for themselves yet and is working out of their garage, that's not the same thing.
Now, I didn't get a lot of orders on DoorDash. I didn't get a ton, like, oh my gosh, you owe me millions of dollars, but I did get enough to say, hey, you know what? Where my $100, $200? They just came back with, oh, you had to pay for this, promotional. People don't realize when you're on these platforms, if you want to be seen, you got to pay for promotion. And when you do discounts, when you go on the app and you order as a customer and they show buy $20, get free delivery, or buy one, get one free. Yeah, it's free to you, but the merchant had to pay for that.
On DoorDash, a buy one, get one free promo typically costs the merchant a small marketing fee per order placed through the promotion. Usually it's around 99 cents per order on top of the cost of the free item itself, meaning you essentially pay for the discounted item plus the marketing fee for each order you generated. So let's say the item itself cost you $15. It actually costs them $16 to actually get that in front of people.
I thought, well, let me go ahead and get my business out there because I'm new. Don't nobody know me. I'm a cloud kitchen. They took all that out of my earnings. So that's why they were like, yeah, we ain't gonna pay you. And I'm like, so it was just a lot of stuff though. I'm like, no, I shouldn't have to pay for this. And I was going back and forth with them. And at the end, I was like, you know what? Go ahead and keep it. On the other hand, Uber Eats never had a problem. Never had a problem. I didn't need a photographer. They didn't send me a photographer. They took the pictures that I had, the same ones I sent to DoorDash. Uber Eats accepted them. I got paid. I had more orders on Uber Eats. I never had a problem. I got paid every Monday. Never had an issue. Yes, you still have to pay for promotion, unfortunately. And then you're still not on the front page. You're just wasting money.
By the way, we're looking forward to having a part 2 to this to go over getting on these platforms, what to pay for, not to. So make sure to leave a comment below to say if that is something you find valuable or not. And we're looking forward to sharing that with you.
Yeah, I never had an issue with Uber Eats. That's one thing I can say. I always got paid, never had an issue.
Startup costs with Ghost Kitchen.
People don't realize part of the startup costs is like your license, your permit. You have to get a business bank account, right? Sometimes these business bank accounts, they want you to have 100 to 200 to 300, sometimes $500 deposit. Yes, in there is your money, but they want you to have that to get started when you open up some of these business accounts. If you do LLCs, sole prop, S Corp, C Corp, partnership, sometimes those different entities, they're like expensive.
Making sure you have the right business entity is not just about saving money on the front end, it's saving money during tax season, so that way you're not overspending and giving more to the government than you should be. Which is why I highly recommend always running through all of these plans through a qualified tax professional to make sure you're doing things by IRS code, so that way you don't get tripped up in any way. And that's where GigTax is here to help. As somebody who's ventured into self-employment via food delivery apps, the income is promising. That said, you're also faced with challenges in navigating taxes as a self-employed person, transforming your gig into a sustainable business. GigTax was founded by Joseph Mayo, a seasoned gig worker with over 7,000 deliveries across 7 platforms since 2020. They understand the challenges of freelancers, rideshare drivers, couriers, online sellers, ghost kitchen, gig workers of all kinds. Their #1 online tax preparation service is designed to help you maximize your tax savings and save you time, energy, and money. Enjoy exclusive discounts on tax preparation services, as well as a range of other benefits such as electronic filing, strategic sessions, year-round direct access to tax pros and financial partners, the client app and portal, tax planning services, quarterly tax reviews, and more. All absolutely free and incredibly valued benefits when filing with GigTax. Book your free strategy session today at gigtaxservice.com/drivenwyld and enter the code WILD in all lowercase letters to access your special offering. Let GigTax help simplify, educate, and support you on your tax journey. Whether you're a gig worker looking to make some extra money, a ghost kitchen that's just getting off the ground, or a successful entrepreneur leading an incredible lifestyle. Visit GigTax using the link in the description and get started with making the most amount of money in the least amount of time and in the safest possible way. And with that said, back to the video.
If someone gave you $1,000 and said, hey, this is $1,000 seed money to get started with your startup cost. Let's just say you have a food business. Out of that $1,000, you probably paying up to $750 just in permits, licenses, and other fees. You need a logo, you need a website, social media. Still have to pay for advertising because who's going to buy from you? To be honest, with your grand opening, probably want to get help with that. And the easy way to have a grand opening, I'm going to tell you a secret. Are you listening? Are you ready? The secret to having a great grand opening at a reasonable price, and also for people to come and join you, the Chamber of Commerce. I am a member of the African American Chamber of Commerce. I am going to join other chambers, but that's the fastest and quickest, more effective, affordable way to have a grand opening. Because depending on which package you choose with the chamber, they actually come out to you and have a grand opening party, and they bring the Silzers. I bought that outright, and that's $200 right there. But if you join the chamber, depending on which package you choose, sometimes it's $350 for the whole year. Will I use that again? If I open up another business, I probably would, right? So you're kind of stuck with it. And then they bring people with you, like they come and help you or whatever. I just want people to realize that it's going to take money and it's going to take people to support you. It's going to take people to buy from you. You have to really think about the products that you create. Even under the cottage law, let's just say cookies. You have 3 categories of cookies. So you have gluten-free, peanut-free, whatever it is. You want to have different things for different people. Because then if you just have regular cookies, peanut butter cookies, some people will say, well, do you have gluten-free peanut butter cookies? Well, do you have peanut butter this with chocolate? With food, it's just too many variations. And that's what I learned starting out with DōBeverage, because I started in a detached garage for like maybe 10 to 11 months, just selling gluten-free donuts, alkaline water, and different varieties of almond milk. Then after those 11 months, I found a space in a food court in Houston, and I changed my menu. Started making a mini donut myself, which was, oh my gosh, smelling like grease every day. But I wanted to do something different. I changed my whole menu. I was a partner with Monin Syrup. Starbucks used them. A lot of coffee places and other restaurants that do certain type of drink, they use Monin. Monin. They will send me media kits.
Monin is a gourmet syrup company that Starbucks uses and comes with a lot of different flavors and syrups. This is why you can turn your coffee in the morning at Starbucks into basically what is a milkshake.
They would send me fall, winter, spring, and summer drinks. And so I would go through the drinks. And I said, okay, well, how many ingredients are in these drinks? I had like 4 to 5 drinks that I was known for. I went ahead and I was like, I'm only going to prepare a drink that I only need 2 to 3 ingredients. You got to buy that. It costs a lot.
So I had to do a little digging on this. The average cost for a 750 milliliter glass bottle is $11, and it contains 25 servings, each measuring 1 fluid ounce. You could also buy the pumps that pump out a 1/4 fluid ounce per pump, but that still means you're spending a lot just to get the syrup in. And by the way, 750 milliliter is their smallest case, and a lot of people have complained about it being expensive, but then again, now you will know why Starbucks coffee is so expensive.
Now I'm making my mini donut. I made funnel cakes, some of the Starbucks coffees in the bottle, and I had like ice cream, like different type of ice cream. When I did that, I left DoorDash. I never interacted with DoorDash. I never been on their platform when I moved to the food court, because I said I'm not going through that again.
And if you guys want to hear more from Mico about getting started with ghost kitchens, some of the more intricate details on this, and would like to see a part 2, make sure to leave a comment in the description so we can have more of that conversation, so that way we can help you make the most amount of money in the least amount of time and in the safest possible way. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As always, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Rise up, shake off that 9-to-5 rust. In this wild world of hustle we trust. Break them all, leave them all in dust. Driven Wyld's the only wave of must.